So, My Hero Academia is back with a brand new season. Well, technically Vigilantes is, but that's besides the point. Either way, a new season is here, just premiered, first episode has been released, and I'm here to do my breakdown and review of it. So, hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and I'm here to do this breakdown and review for My Hero Academia Vigilantes Season 2, Episode 1. And there's a fair amount that I want to talk about. So before we dive into it, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I try to make My Hero Academia content when I can, and if you want to see more My Hero Academia, subscribe. And with that out the way, let's dive right into it. And to start off, the episode's titled Day Tripping Down to Naniwa, which takes its name from manga chapter 31, as this episode covers material from chapters 31, 32, and the first 2 pages of 33. As well as we actually go back and cover material from chapter 3, pages 1 to 5. Also, something else that I forgot to bring up is that the title of this episode, which once again derives its name from chapter 31 of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, the original title of the chapter was called On Tour, but was eventually changed to Day Tripping Down to Naniwa in the volume release. Something that I forgot to bring up, and I am bringing up now. And with that in mind, this will lead us into the first major change when it comes to this episode. Because the first major change starts with the anime adapting the first 5 pages of chapter 3 in the start of this episode, where we have a narration by Koichi explaining the difference between regular people and heroes in regard to quirk usage. And that outside of the added imagery that was done in the manga, this scene shows multiple citizens using their quirks, as we have the anime adding a man putting up a force field, a boy shooting a laser from his eyes, a girl firing an air blast from her mouth, and another boy emitting pink ring-shaped energy from his own mouth. These were characters that were not in this panel in the manga that the anime added, as well as the anime for some unknown reason decides to remove the man firing a laser cannon from his hand. And this is a very minor change with the overall scheme of the episode. And while these are just as minor changes, there is another minor change that was made for, copyright reasons. And that is that when it comes to these scenes, there is an addition and subtraction from this moment. Because there's a man in the manga with stretchy arms who originally resembles Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece using his devil fruit powers, who also has a mustache very much like Gold D. Roger. However, this character is redesigned with a different appearance for the anime. So that is another minor change, as well as how the anime is able to include the heroes from that double page spread in the manga in their own individual segments instead of it being shown as one segment or one frame in the anime. But the changes from the first episode don't just stop there, because there is still the page of Koichi in his dreams of being a hero being crushed, being translated from the manga to the anime, where we have a scene very much like in the manga of Koichi in his room as he's getting older, with the anime adding more furniture to the shots of Koichi's room over the years, as well as the anime showing this scene in a sepia tone, which gives it a more unique flair to the depiction of this moment as being a little bit more depressing and also old-timey, as this is supposed to be a pseudo flashback right before we transition more into modern times, as Koichi is not reflecting on the past but is now looking towards his future as a vigilante. And this is a very cool moment because this is a full adaptation of the singular page of chapter 3, where we get the title of that chapter as we see both Pop Step, Knuckle Duster, and the Crawler appear on this page, and it looks wonderful. But along with that in mind, the anime also significantly extends this section which mentions vigilantes, as we get a full description of these characters' roles paired with a montage of the Naruhata vigilantes as well as the pro heroes working their jobs as seen in the previous season. Basically, we get a small mini clip show recap to refresh the viewers who may not remember everything that happened in the last season in this part of the episode. because as from here on out, we get the brand new opening as well as the start of the episode proper. But I won't go over the new OP in depth, but I will say that the opening itself for season 2 of My Hero Academia Vigilantes looks very beautiful and colorful. And the song itself to me is a certified banger. Now, the openings themselves are not as great as season 1 due to the fact that there isn't really a running through line with this opening as we saw with opening 1. However, a lot of it is still cool and we still get a lot of great animation, especially when it comes to the explosions that we see a lot of in the opening, which is unfortunate as we do get a little bit more slideshow / still frames in the opening, but that is contrasted with a lot more of singular characters having a lot more motion than we got in the previous opening, in my opinion. But without the way, let's dive right into the episode proper as we once again get the running theme of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, where we get a black background that is describing an aspect of heroism and vigilanteism that is going to be associated with the arc or arcs that we are going to be getting in that episode. And in this case, the arc is going to be focusing on secret identity as we get the definition of what a secret identity is in the world of My Hero Academia. And bad transition incoming, the episode actually starts off with Mui and Yu training alongside the other performers of the Naru Fest as they are talking about why Pop is currently missing from their training session. And it's here when Yu remembers what Makoto told her about keeping Pop's trip a secret from Miu, as the anime depicts it as a short flashback instead of just a speech bubble with the woman's face, which means that Miu now learns that Popstep went to Naniwa for a specific concert and she's very upset about it. And how with her being upset about it, she also begins to criticize Koichi, who went alongside Popstep. And it's here when Miu assumes that Koichi would be the type of person who would miss the train in the middle of buying a bento box, which the anime shows him doing just that. But in the manga, it's just a line that she said. However, that's just the line that she says in the manga. And what's even funny about this is that this small addition really adds to why I like how Bones Films is adapting My Hero Academia Vigilante, because these small changes made really add to the story and also puts into a better context of what is being said, while also emphasizing the comedy in a lot of aspects with these additions. Because as Miu predicted, Koichi does miss the train, very much like Miu expected, as we see that while Pop is worried about Koichi missing the train and talking to Makoto about how they may have to use the company card to get him on a second train there, we see that he actually is able to appear at the next stop as he gained a new grasp of his powers, which is basically now that Koichi can just stick to things and not just hover above them. And how this is actually expanded upon in the anime, showing him running more to get and touch the train, which causes the reveal of him being able to stick to it more impactful. And just like in the manga, the anime explains Koichi's new ability as they finally arrive at Osaka, where the anime adds more establishing shots of Osaka as well as shows Koichi and Kazuho arriving in Osaka, with Kazuho carrying a suitcase which is anime original and not something that is actually in the manga. And this addition makes sense as she would most likely not want to wear her Popstep costume under her normal clothing, so it makes sense that she would bring a suitcase that contains all of her Popstep stuff in it. But as we get a little bit more of these anime original scenes, and as this is all happening, from here we have a brand new character making their first appearance in the spinoff, aka the BMI hero Fat Gum, who we see is chasing down a thug who attempts to shoot at Fat Gum but is immediately stopped and flicked. And what's cool about this moment is that the anime makes a few additions and changes. For instance, the anime adds Fat Gum's quirk introduction in the anime after he blocks the bullet being fired, giving a little bit more emphasis and understanding for why the bullet was stopped this way, because this is something that is actually absent from the manga. As well as the anime does something else by showing Fat Gum apologizing to the thug, very much like in the manga, after he flicked him, as well as when he realizes that Koichi was able to save all of his takoyaki. the anime actually shows Fat Gum putting the takoyaki in the thug's mouth, which is very funny, and I'm glad that they were able to actually show that. And the final change in this moment is that once Koichi and Kazuho meet up with and begin to help Fat Gum, afterwards, Fat Gum leaves as the anime adds a moment of Kazuho and Koichi commenting on his appearance and behavior, and how this behavior is very much that of the individuals who grew up in Osaka. And this is a very cool addition because Fat Gum is a local, because he is from Osaka. But after they have departed ways, it's from here where we probably get the character that I have been waiting for since My Hero Academia Vigilantes started running for its first season. And that is when Koichi and Pop arrive, we get the introduction of Monika, probably the funniest character in all of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, no question. And it's from here where the anime really just gives Monika a lot more characterization in the anime than we see in the manga, because very much like in the manga, she's able to introduce herself with her gag where she's distorting her face to look like a crab, and how the anime actually shows the initial reactions to her hikai crab face and how Koichi and Popstep are reacting to it. This is something that we would have gotten later on, but I'm glad that they're able to show the reaction twice. And while other parts of the anime are very similar to the manga, such as the conversation that they have about how Monika thinks that Koichi and Pop are boring, when Monika leaves to eventually meet the Willows, the anime actually shows them as a group of female performers instead of just being addressed off screen in the manga. And another small change that is made as we cut off to Pop and Koichi discussing about catchphrases, which was brought up with the conversation with Monika. Monika can be heard showing the Willows her act off screen. Once again, just really showing who Monika is as a character a lot more in the anime than what we got in the manga, which is going to be important for the role that she's going to be playing, not just in this episode, but the next one. But it's from here we actually do get the transition over to Fat Gum as we cut back over to him meeting Tsukachi, with the anime actually showing them shaking hands when they meet up, which is actually not shown in the manga. As well as the anime also changes the moment that Naomasa, Tsukachi, sees Popstep's outfit, because in the manga, it's just one singular frame or one singular camera. However, in the anime, there are multiple surveillance feeds that are actually watching different areas outside of just the dressing room, because there are several other parts of the venue that is seen instead of just the green room cameras, which is going to be highlighting Monika as well as Pop. And they're also arranged more as a grid instead of just paneled individually. So like I said, these small changes really add to and make the world a little bit more fleshed out. And even from there, this is even shown more, because after that, we actually get to see the performance of Popstep, which is shown more in detail in the anime than what we got in the manga, which is something else that I very much enjoy about anime adaptations, because the anime medium is able to depict these still images and mute pages of characters such as Popstep singing and performing on manga and really make it come alive and have that intent being portrayed a lot better in the anime than in the manga. Even to the point where we get to see the anime extending the sequence as we see more Popstep's fans in the crowd, showing that they most likely followed her to Osaka or she gained new fans there, as well as them also adding the ending of the Willow's performance, which is something that we actually don't see any of in the manga, and how this is eventually preceded by Monika leaving for the bathroom because of her upset stomach, and how these are just a small additions that can only be realized in an anime. But from here, we do get a few more changes that involve the pro heroes as well as Monika, Koichi, and Popstep, because as Koichi and Popstep meet back up with Monika in her giant crab robot, she has to leave in a rush as her handler falls. And like in the manga, Monika has to leave because her stomach is quote-unquote upset, and it begins to take her a while to return. However, in the manga, Monika's handler randomly appears right next to Koichi and Popstep as he checks the time and looks to them, while in the anime, he walks up to them while checking the time, with Koichi asking if something's wrong. This is a actually smart change in hindsight that makes more sense in the anime than in the manga, because if you assume that someone is running away from you and someone else is trying to chase after them, in the next scene, they wouldn't just appear right next to you, especially if the person that is doing the chasing and the person that they are chasing actually leaves and the chaser stays still. It makes sense that they would have to walk back to the original spot instead of just appearing there, unless the implication is that Pop as well as Koichi were following him, which is most likely not the case. So changes like this are also important to have it flow a lot better in the anime, as well as making changes that make more sense. But after that, we actually cut over to some pro heroes, especially the return of Eraserhead, who is back in action and in the limelight, as we also see an expanded fight sequence from the manga in the anime of Eraserhead stopping the black market dealers, aka the Hota brothers, who have quirks that allow them to turn into grasshoppers. And the Hota brothers, who are named Jiro and Ichiro, are shown attacking Aizawa, but the anime actually shows Aizawa nullifying their quirks as well as wrapping them in his binding. As well as something that is very great that I didn't notice on first viewing is that the anime actually cleans up a panel in the manga depicting the Hota brothers actually injecting themselves with trigger, as well as kind of changing the dialogue about how the trigger that they are taking are actually a different version of the bad trigger, aka the trigger that causes for the individuals to go even more monstrous, as well as causing them to permanently change. So I'm glad that they were able to expand the scene even more, as well as even showing a little bit more comedic relief between the Hota brothers as well as Aizawa, due to the fact that these are going to be reoccurring characters who are going to be very much interacting with Aizawa a lot. Also, it was a very funny scene, and they were able to transition the comedy between the manga into the anime amazingly in this moment. But as Aizawa is having a conversation with the Hota brothers, this is where he learns a little bit more about the bad trigger, as well as he asks them about the crab root, because the entire reason why Tsukachi, Fat Gum, and the other individuals are here is to stop a crucial point in a drug trading ring involving trigger. And how when it comes to this moment, there's also a very important scene that pretty much explains all of what I just said. However, when it comes to this change, the anime has this flashback being explained why Aizawa stopped these guys by having Naomasa, Midnight, and Eraserhead meeting up and talking at the police station in the anime, while in the manga, this entire conversation and this plan being brought up is actually being discussed at Naru Fest, which means that Naomasa, aka Tsukachi, is not walking alongside Midnight as well as Eraserhead when they're walking out of the building. As well as something else that was cut from this moment as well is Eraserhead explaining about Midnight volunteering for him to go up against the villain factory investigation while he's actually sitting on Jiro. Which I like this change because it shows that the relationship that Midnight and Eraserhead have is a little bit less antagonistic due to the fact that they were all students around the same time at UA, which is going to lead to something that I'm very much looking forward to in My Hero Academia Vigilantes, aka the flashback of Aizawa. If you know, you know. But yeah, with this fun conversation over coffee is over, and tying it into the Mantis guy that we saw in the last season, this is where we transition over to the final part of the episode, where the episode begins with an actual switched moment between the anime and the manga when it comes to how this was shown in both mediums. Because Koichi and Pop eventually learn about Monica leaving, as we learn that she's actually an undercover cop, and how in the anime shows Monica getting into her police uniform after Popstep and Koichi try out the crab mech, while in the manga we see Monica become a cop first, and then we see Pop and Koichi try out the mech. Basically, it's flipped so that the episode ends on a dramatic reveal instead of Popstep and Koichi goofing off. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that I really need to say about the episode. Overall, I think this is a very good start to the new season for My Hero Academia Vigilantes. It's not something spectacular, but it goes into the casual flow from last, which is a little bit more down to earth, but it's going to be ramping up really soon, especially with the reveal of who's going to be in the next episode, the proper introduction of the big bad. But hey, that's all I really have to say on the topic. So let me ask you this. How'd you feel about the episode? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? And do you think that My Hero Academia is finally back with the Vigilante spinoff? Leave your thoughts down below. And once again, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!